call to order the Joint Community Development Authority and Plan Commission Subcommittee meeting for Tuesday, June 14th, 2:30 p.m. at the Rome Municipal Building. And we'll do a roll call starting with Cheryl.
Evenson here.
Capel here.
Baker.
Janzak here.
So Cheryl is representing Sharon Schermerhorn from the CDA as the alternate member, and Paul Janzik is representing Dan Goldman as the alternate member from Plan Commission. Certify the posting of the meeting.
The agenda for the June 14th Joint Plan Commission and CDA meeting was posted at the following locations on May 27th, 2022. Rome Municipal Building at 12:15 p.m. Leicester Public Library of Rome, 12:07 p.m. Nakusa Port Edward State Bank, 12 p.m. Emailed to the Wisconsin Daily Tribune at 11:53 a.m. and emailed to the town website at 12:51 p.m.
Thank you. Could I get approval of the agenda for today?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Baker, seconded by Bill. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Number 5 is citizen comments, and we have received no comment cards. We don't have any residents joining us today, but certainly welcome any comments if someone would join us at any moment. No action contemplated except for possible referral to a future agenda. Information updates, recent correspondence, current events, and announcements. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
I don't know all the specifics, but the Rome Snow Bandits, you're gonna make that announcement? I don't know, they won an international award, for the
yes.
best snowmobile club of the year.
Snowmobile Club of the Year, international and national. They got both. Yeah.
So congratulations to the Snow Bandits.
Yep, and their
Car show is this weekend.
This weekend, 9 to 3 Saturday. Yeah. Yes. The only other thing I would announce is after Plan Commission this evening, 5:30, we are doing a Flag Day ceremony at the gazebo. If anyone would like to join, and we're going to read the names of the 11 veterans that are a part of our inaugural Veteran Banner program. And there's music to follow.
Sponsored by the CDA.
Yes.
That's
Medicine. So discussion and possible action on the following items. Number 7, discussion and possible action approval of the May 10th, 2022 joint meeting minutes. Can I have a motion?
So moved to approve as presented.
Moved by Baker,
Second.
seconded by Janzik. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Number 8, discussion of possible action, second review of track change modifications to chapter 3, 4, and 5 of the comprehensive plan. So Emily included in your packet both the comments that were made previously and then the updates to the goals, objectives, and policies. If we wanted to start with chapter 3 housing first.
I have a grammatical one.
Sure.
On Objective 2, Policy 5, second line. I think it's just 1 O, 2, not 2 O's. That's it.
My thought when I reread these was Objective 1 and Objective 5 are similar. And I didn't know if there was a way to potentially combine those two. Because one is talking about additional infill in areas where there's already development, and then Objective 5 is talking about rehabilitation of homes or living areas that might be in deterioration or blight. I don't know, I felt like they somewhat dovetailed.
I don't know. I think they're two separate things. I really do. Because of the fact that you're talking about deterioration and blight, as opposed to additional housing stock.
Okay, that's fair. I
I
just
think you need to
circled
keep
that.
them separate.
That was my only additional comment on 3. Nothing else on 3? We're feeling good about that chapter? Okay.
Yep.
Chapter 4, transportation. Again, on this one, the objective 2 and 5, I know there's a lot of objectives in transportation. So we went back through it, I was like, is there a way to do some combining on some of these?
When we're talking about, current.
Just to handle existing and expected traffic volumes. Ensure appropriate location of access points and connectivity to the existing road network. But then ensure good traffic flow and improve safety in growth areas of the town. I sort of felt like objective 5 echoed most of what was in objective 2. It's lengthy, but then policy 1 and 2 could get added to 5. Or they could be added as part of 6. Because 6 talks about our existing PACER program.
I think 2 going into 6 would probably be better. Improvement programs and participate in current maintenance and assessment.
Right, I agree that 2 into 6 would be, probably a way to make that a little more, condensed.
I don't
So
know that-
your recommendation is to combine 2 and 6?
Combine
Objective 2 and 6?
Yeah, combine 2 and 6,
Okay.
and then, objective 2, policy 2 probably still somewhat stands alone for like a policy 4, but policy 1 may work into one of the 3 policies. under
Geez, that's
6.
already existing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could be added as a sentence to policy 2 on objective 6 by just including the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell us network of the transportation, you're developing a capital improvements plan, and providing, just add, and providing for new development areas within the town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Actively participate in current road maintenance, it could be comma, assessments of future road needs, additional transportation needs, and expected traffic volumes, that's what we're saying.
Yep.
You already have to handle the current existing.
yep.
Okay.
So can you just rephrase, sorry,
We're just adding this expected traffic volumes to the end of here, but then take out your ands. Yep, and make it
Okay.
comma, make it sequential. And then we just have to work in policy 1 and 2 under objective 2 into objective 6.
yep, okay.
Anything else on transportation?
On the next page, after policy 6, are we misnumbered? I have objective 6, and then I have goal 2, and it was, objective 7 was crossed out and it was made 8.
Yeah, we don't have a lot where we have multiple goals, right? Most of them have the one goal,
Right?
but we would just have to cross-reference, should this be
It
objective
should be,
1 'cause
it
of
should
goal
be
2?
back to where the numbers were. I think the numbers were correct. It'd be objective, it'd be goal 2, objective 7, because
We don't have a 7.
objective 6 is the one previous to it.
We don't have a 7.
And unless I missed it, 7 is missing.
Oh, see,
So the
I-
numbering was correct.
I think we deleted one.
Yeah, objective 7 isn't on here. It's
But if those are all under goal 1, do you start over with goal 2 and make that a number 1?
No, when I went back and looked at others, there were others
There were
where there were
others that were like
goals,
that,
and the
okay.
objectives continued in a sequential
Yeah, I
numbering
read it the
now.
way Mike read it when I was like, should that be 1? Okay, so we'll just make sure that's the correct number when
This
we,
goes back to 7,
Yeah.
8, 9. Or 7.
Yeah, I think it was correctly numbered. And we got rid of 9.
9 is on.
anything else on transportation? Chapter number 5, infrastructure, public services or utilities. I didn't know under objective 1, policy 3, it says seek state and federal grants and other assistance when available. I just thought maybe we should put in coordination with the grant subcommittee, now that we have a grant subcommittee, adding them into the piece.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And then objective number 2, provide infrastructure and public services that respond to the needs. And we have aging population, including the need for accessibility, but when I read back through that, I thought, do we wanna say a diverse or changing population? Is it only aging that we want to identify?
I think that's probably a better way to phrase it
Yeah.
than just aging, because with the amount of people that we have that work in town but don't have a place to stay, so there comes your diverse population, so to speak. That's a good idea.
So cross off aging and put diverse
Okay.
population. Because it still would work with Adams County and community groups to identify needs, that still is applicable, but
Yep.
there might be other needs besides that one need.
Absolutely.
Any other additions on chapter 5 or changes?
Under goal 2, policy 2 was deleted, but policy 3 remained policy 3. Should we change that to policy 2? Under goal 2?
Oh, yep,
Oh, yes.
draft changes are wonderful, but after you get so many of them, it's like,
You stop seeing them after a while, yeah.
So then item number 9, discussion and possible action, review track change modifications to chapter 6, economic development goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. So this would be our first review and would just take in the comments that were previously provided. So with the work with Adams County Economic Development, if we could put in parentheses ACED behind it, and then you wouldn't have to put Rome, you could just put Community Development Authority and then CDA behind it. So then when we refer to
Oh, yeah.
ACED or CDA, from there on, they have the reference.
Okay.
Under goal 1, objective, under objective 2, do we think it's needed to clarify it's continue to support ACED and chambers? Should it be chambers of commerce? Or just, so, I don't know if everybody reading chambers really
Town
would understand
chambers, or
what
town chambers.
chambers are.
And the two when I read that, were Wood and Adams County
Yeah,
Chambers
that's
that
what
I
I
was
was
thinking,
reading.
yeah.
There's just a grammatical, under objective 4, policy 1, recommend, to move that to T, with a D, please.
Under objective number 3, I'm wondering if we wanna put examples, or if we just take them out because there are so many. Just encourage and promote the tourism industry through support of community-based organizations.
Instead of just a
And then
select
just-
few, yeah,
And just leave it at
Yeah.
that,
yeah.
and then nobody gets their feelings hurt.
Yep.
Then,
But do
under-
we want to have it defined as serving the tourism industry?
Well, that goal is fairly specific to tourism.
Yeah.
Is policy 1 redundant then?
I think so.
It's,
So just
Yeah,
leave
it's
it
literally
community-based
word
and then
for
have
word.
policy 1.
And then
Yeah.
just renumber 2 and 3. And 4.
Well, no, we're gonna get rid of that anyway.
Oh,
So leave policy 1, but cut it off after community-based organizations, period.
okay.
wait, no. So
No.
objective 3 would end, like Bill said, after community-based organizations.
Mm-hmm,
Policy 1 will be removed
Yeah.
because it's redundant with,
Because it's already encouraging,
with
yeah.
the objective.
under, no, it should be objective 4, continue to work with the planning commission. It should be plan commission and not planning commission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we wanna put where appropriate in both of those. So recommend development and non-development districts where appropriate, and recommend overlay districts that will enhance the local economic interest where appropriate.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's continue to work with the plan commission as appropriate.
When appropriate.
Or as needed, or,
Yeah.
I like adding it to policy 2. I'm not sure it's needed in policy 1.
So add where appropriate
Where appropriate, yeah.
on policy 2, objective 4. On objective number 3, policy 4, ensure the rural environment by adopting proper setbacks and buffers for development. I think it should just say ensure the rural atmosphere, sorry, I said environment, ensure the rural atmosphere by adopting setbacks and buffers for development, and just
Not
take
proper.
proper out. I mean, I think we've had a lot of conversation that we do want those things, so rather than have we'll have what's proper. Is 10 feet proper? Is it like?
Properly defined in the zoning
Yeah,
ordinance code.
but we're saying we want
Yeah.
setbacks.
and it won't be policy 4 any longer, it'll be 3.
3.
Great.
It's a numbers game.
I know, you take one out, you gotta make up for it.
Can appreciate the minutes are a challenge. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda. Anything else on chapter number 6? We'll see this one back an additional time. Discussion and possible action, review, check, change modifications to chapter number 7, land use goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan.
Just to note, this has really got some meat in it to keep our community really looking good for the future, in my opinion.
What do we mean by minimizing intrusion of incompatible land uses?
I can give you an example.
I would think, okay, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so.
Because I would, otherwise
That would come into play where somebody's trying to rezone, a parcel that is completely incompatible with the surrounding properties. So let's just say it's a whole area of commercial and somebody's trying to rezone it to ag.
Okay.
Or maybe, there's it's all residential around there and somebody wants to zone that to commercial.
okay,
Those would be potentially incompatible
Okay.
at the time of rezone request. Likely it would also require a amendment to the comp plan. And as the plan commission would look at the comp plan, you would want some kind of goals, objectives, and policies that help guide that in making a determination on whether or not it is appropriate to amend the comp plan and rezone.
Okay, thank you.
do we want to even consider intrusions in incompatible land uses?
I laughed.
Do
because
we have to?
It's one of those things where now it seems intrusive, and 10 years from now, they're like, why'd they decide that?
Yeah.
That's the hard part of the,
Foreseeing the future,
yes.
looking through the crystal ball.
I think the answer is that you don't need to have it in there, but
I
to leave it out there.
after you explained it, I think that it bears some, I I'm on board. I understand it better. It means that you've thought about it and you should give it due consideration, but not necessarily approve it.
Exactly. This is a guiding document, so I
Yes.
think this help,
Yep,
it
no,
doesn't,
I'm on board, Nick.
definitely doesn't force the plan commission to determine
Yep.
one way or the other.
Yep, I agree. Okay.
Just a quick question under policy 5, objective 3. What does reserve lands mean? How do we reserve land?
For the county forest program, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a tough policy to put in there because, are we talking about town lands? Or are you talking about just refusing to rezone any of the land that we feel would be appropriate for future acquisition of county forest program?
Maybe it should be identify instead of reserve.
Yeah, I think identify would be better.
Yeah.
I would
Yes.
agree with that.
Mhm.
Reserve sounds like an overreach.
I agree.
I mean, is there a document today that you can say, hey, this was, we're really kind of thinking about this for,
Yeah, we're gonna get to it.
And I think there's individuals like Jerry Wiesinger in our community that's put a lot of thought into like these identified areas would make sense if there are individuals that wanna enroll it into county forest or, yes,
okay.
yeah. Do we have control over that land? No.
Not necessarily.
Yeah,
So identify would definitely be one.
yep.
Identify and be mindful of.
Well, does that then kind of say the same thing as policy number 6 does under objective 1, the last sentence?
Yeah, it does kind of,
One is for future land to the county forest, the other one's preventing development of current county forest, I think. Right? Or current forest,
So
yeah, I don't
Mike, are
know.
you talking about the last part of policy 6 or policy 6 as a whole?
The last sentence where consideration needs to be given. It kind of mirrors, I think, the policy 5 under objective 3.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
I think it could be removed.
Just that last sentence?
Mm-hmm, okay. Considerations to forest. Good stuff. Anything else on chapter 7? Since we changed that other one about buffers, I'm wondering under objective 3, policy 3, should it say utilize use buffer areas as shields to lessen the impact of potentially conflicting land use types located in relatively close proximity, instead of consider utilizing?
I like that.
That makes sense.
Anything else, chapter 7? Okay, again, we'll see this one one more time. Discussion and possible action, review track change modifications to chapter 8, intergovernmental cooperation, goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. This is a short one. have anything else on
It
this.
looks good to me.
No, I like the changes, yeah.
Great. Item number 12 is our standard item of discussion and possible action, referral of any recommended zoning code amendments to Plan Commission. That one we would skip today because we actually have some specific agenda items on the next two about potential language changes. So if the committee's okay, I'll just skip number 12 and go right to 13, which is discussion and possible referral to a future agenda, review potential draft language for zoning district requirements regarding allowed number of accessory structure and lot coverage by buildings. We've been trying to discuss this at Plan Commission for like 3 meetings, and so Nick is really excited today.
So, just one quick thing, regarding the agenda. So number 12 is a rolling agenda item, makes a lot of sense. I think as we hit on things like 13 and 14, can we do them A and B? They definitely relate
Yep.
to
Okay.
number
Yep.
12, so I think we can slot those in.
Yeah.
It's just easier from an organizational standpoint. Okay, so this one is a little bit unique, in the way that, really, as Jamie referenced, the way this one, has come up. We actually have reviewed this initially at the Plan Commission, because, that was at a point where, this subcommittee wasn't, formed yet. But because we have an ongoing review of the comp plan and a rolling agenda item that relates to reviewing the zoning ordinance and making possible recommendations, we felt it was proper to bring it here as a good lead-off for what this process would look like, and some of the considerations that you might give in light of the goals, objectives, and policies that you're reviewing.
Is there a specific issue that precipitated
Yeah.
the change?
Yep, so
And what
item-
is that?
Yeah, this item comes after questions that were received by the town primarily relating to additional accessory buildings on residential properties, and specifically, how many different buildings can be added to a parcel. So that's really what started the consideration of this. As we looked through the ordinance, I'll point to a couple of the areas where we regulate this currently. So first, we generally regulate accessory buildings in 360-10. Under 360-10A, it references where there's a principal structure dwelling present or where there isn't, right? Where there isn't a principal structure dwelling present, we do allow a shed or an accessory building with a limitation on its size. I believe we also put a limitation on height and roof overhang, but size is what we're really looking at here. Well, as we get to the lot coverage piece. Then, where there is a principal structure present, we have certain regulations in zoning districts. For example, Lake District zoning district has a specific regulation that limits to 1 shed under the permitted uses. And also, Lake District has a lot area restriction that limits lot coverage by buildings, so impervious building and ancillary surfaces, that does exclude driveways, and it limits it to not more than 20% of the total lot area. Okay, so the same regulations don't exist in our residential districts. Certainly, accessory buildings are referenced as permitted uses in those residential districts, but there isn't the same 1 shed kind of limitation, okay? So the Plan Commission did review this, and in doing the review that the Plan Commission did, took a look at all the different residential districts. We have a number of them going from R1 to R5. In looking at that, paid some consideration to where we might want lot coverage limitations and where it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have that, and then where we might put limitations on the number of accessory structures that are similar to what we have in the Lake District. So just a couple notes. So districts R1, R1C, R2, and R3 do have minimum lot sizes of 1 acre. And I would just note that R4 and R5 do have much larger minimum acreages. I say that as a lead-in because that was definitely something that the Plan Commission considered. All also, I would just note that R1 and R1C does reference a purpose in the, so when you look at a zoning district, you can look to the purpose statement. That's usually a good guiding kind of intro to a district, and that does reference a purpose to prevent overcrowding. So I think that was relevant in the review as well. So at the Plan Commission's review, and Plan Commission members, please correct me if I interpreted this wrong, but the Plan Commission did review all those districts and had a recommendation at that point for me to draft language that went from R1 to R3 districts, so did not apply to R4 or R5, that limited it to one accessory structure and one shed, and maintain the same 20% lot coverage limitation. So again, that would be for then R1 through R3 districts. And again, Plan Commission members, correct me if I misstate this, but I think the discussion that the Plan Commission at that time had was to pay kind of deference to the fact that R4 has a minimum acreage of 5 acres, R5 I believe is 35 acres. So when you start talking about lot coverage limitations, you're talking about a huge amount of lot coverage, where the lot coverage limitation didn't make quite as much sense. And the same with the limitation on accessory structures when you're dealing with lots of that size. Now when you're talking about lots that have potentially much smaller sizes, it made more sense, I think, in the Plan Commission's review. So that's a lead-in, and now I'll take you through what you have for potential language. So again, I said that the Plan Commission had, in their initial review, discussed one accessory structure and one shed. I say that again because you're going to see a little bit different language here, and I'll explain that. So you'll see first, let's just start with R1. What I put there was under C, instead of accessory buildings, I just said permitted accessory structures with an indent then under that, with 1 being accessory buildings including, and I listed the accessory buildings, detached garages, carports, gazebo, swimming pool, greenhouse, play structure, incidental to the residential use of the property, with the number of accessory buildings under that provision limited to 2 structures. Here's why. There's a lot of different things that are considered accessory structures, right? And so if we just limited that to 1, as the Plan Commission had initially discussed, that might be too limiting when you consider the different structures that could be accessory structures. That's not to say that we have to put it at 2, but that was my reasoning behind at least proposing or discussing this as potentially more than just the 1. And then, just like we do in Lake District, under R1, you see the 1 shed.
So Nick, if I had, I'm a young person, I just built a house and I didn't want to attach the garage, so I made it detached, and my wife liked the gazebo in the backyard, and now all of a sudden kids come along, I can't put a swing set in the backyard,
I was just thinking the same thing.
and I have a 4.5 acre lot.
Also, a swing set
Is not a play
technically
structure?
not a play structure. It needs to
What
have
is a
like
play
the
structure?
roof, the elevated surface with the roof. It's like the house
So it has to be a climb with the climbing and the slides,
and
and
the roof. Yeah.
so
Because the deck. The
a
deck
swing
board
set's
is like-
okay, but a play structure's not. And a 4.5 acre lot. If I have a gazebo in a garage already. I guess I don't understand it. Or can you come in for an exception? If I want to get a play set, because I now have kids,
So-
10 years down the road.
Great point. And a good lead-in to further saying that if we wanted to leave it as the Plan Commission first talked about as 1 structure, what you can do, note that this is permitted, right? These are the permitted
Right.
use. What you could do is add under conditional uses more structures, right? You could
Okay.
add the ability to to get more structures. All I would say though to that is after Act 67, that you probably want to clarify the limitation. So more structures probably isn't, we can't just leave it at more structures.
Maximum of,
It does need to be, I think it needs to be a maximum, because otherwise, there's really, it really doesn't accomplish a whole lot other than sending it through a conditional use permit request for the third, fourth, fifth, or sixth structure.
mhm.
But you can have a item under conditional uses that references the additional accessory structures.
What is our, because we changed help me remember, on elevated structures or play structures, that language. I mean, what happens, the concern isn't the play set that would happen, right? It's,
I understand. I
Yeah.
think it was a playhouse that was built, didn't exactly meet the neighbors.
is there a way to put something that would be different with if it was a play set structure?
You'd have to define what play structures are.
Yeah.
Or what
we
they
do.
aren't. And I mean, a playhouse is totally different ballgame to me than a play structure.
Or
Something, or a treehouse is
And there
totally
are-
different than a play structure in
there
my book.
are developmentally disabled young adults that become older and bigger, and they're not small children, and yet they still need to be able to climb and play outside and be in a structure that's not built for a swing set for a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
And when you come to accessibility, we've got to allow them to be able to put a structure like that in their yard for those purposes. And we shouldn't say, no, you can't
But that
have
would be a
it.
conditional use. They could come in for a conditional use on that.
Not in this moment, because it's not under conditional use, I guess is what, we would be having this as part of that conversation.
Yeah, I think
I mean, I don't have a problem with what they're trying to do. I understand they don't want properties to get looking junky. So, but they need to have consideration for just what I said: a detached garage, a gazebo, and a play structure.
I think the concern is that there was no top end limit.
Yeah.
And I think the concern also is overcrowding.
Yep.
I think there are ways that we can address that, whether we put the limitation like
Well, you already have 20%.
we don't have 20%.
Oh, okay.
That's-
You're but
Yes.
adding 20%.
Yeah,
You're-
only in Lake District.
So if 20% coverage is the overriding factor, that will,
That's impervious surface.
yeah,
right?
that will sort it out real quickly.
But if you have a larger
'Cause
lot
of-
size,
A swing set isn't gonna take up any impervious surface.
it would take up very little, yes, yeah.
None. It's non-existent because the rain goes through it.
But on all accessory structures, on these larger lot sizes, 20% is a very large amount,
Generally speaking, yeah.
yes. I could have several
Garages.
10 by
So-
10 sheds.
So the idea was to still limit the number of exterior structures,
Or have some,
control.
Some review,
yes.
at least.
I have no problem supporting what they're trying to do. There just has to be a caveat for a way out for people that do have the property size to add additional things for children or for developmentally disabled.
Yeah, there has to be all sorts of,
Yeah,
not just
There has
because
to
the
be-
neighbor doesn't like the look of it.
there has to be a way, yeah.
Right, and remember, under Act 67, that's not an option anymore, right? If you made anything a conditional use and you meet all of the qualifications,
It's an automatic,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm suggesting if we do add it as conditional use, I think we further limit it to.
Yeah,
put a
there
number
has,
on it. Otherwise,
I can see there has to be some kind of a limiting issue, but
Right, and the only problem with conditional use is then, it's a $300 fee. You have to go through that piece of plan commission.
yeah.
So it's a give and take on that one.
Yeah, well, but unless you're not meeting the requirements, you put in for a conditional use, you pay your $300 and it's granted. It's hard not to grant them as the law has changed.
Correct. I mean, there can be conditions put on it, and
Right.
I suspect as that number would grow of structures, that there very well could be.
Yeah.
Maybe location on the property and, ensuring that there's a buffer between neighbors and all of that good stuff.
You guys get to have all the fun.
Trust me, it's not all that fun though.
Join us.
I understand.
Yeah, I mean, they aren't easy.
It's Rubik's Cube.
I think the clearer the ordinances,
Yeah.
the easier the process is when we get to the plan
Correct.
commission.
Yeah.
The more ambiguous, the more difficult those can get.
So our play structures, are we incorporating tree houses? Or is that a whole separate ballgame?
So we define,
Certain
I was just looking under new laws, but I think you might have.
It's under elevated structures or something.
No, yeah, it got folded in already,
Okay, so-
cause that was last year.
Got it.
So that's not considered an accessory building? It's
Give
different?
us a sec, cause we did some,
I know you did. I didn't,
Yeah.
I don't know what you did though.
It's under general, right? 36010 probably.
365 is definition, so it's in there for
Oh,
definitions.
yeah, I'm looking for the actual regulations.
I'm scrolling.
Um,
Uh, 36062. Mine doesn't have the track changes. Oh, we might have made that only for LD.
Really? Did we? I can't remember. That might be right, because I'm not seeing it under general.
Except for the following, there are no elevated structures permitted in the LD zoning district.
Okay, so when we put the regulations in place, I know we considered it at one point for all districts. We only put it in place for LD.
It should be R1 through R3 for sure, not the bigger ones, I guess, but.
Play structure, provided said structure shall not have a footprint exceeding 100 square feet or a height at any point taller than 15 feet. Play structure shall not be located on any lot unless the lot contains a single-family dwelling and shall not be located on the street side facing front yard.
Again, just a reminder that what she's reading is in LD. And so, for example, in R1 through R3, they're allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Just not as strictly enforced as we do in LD. But play structure is an accessory building, or structure.
Mhm.
So you can see it from the lake, but not from the road is what they want, in the Lake District.
That it would be in the backyard, not in the front facing yard.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, because sometimes in Lake District, the front facing is the lake, yes. Street facing, not in the
Street
street
facing.
facing.
All depends whether you live there or you're driving by.
Plan commission members, what are your thoughts? I know we had reviewed it at one point, and I think at that time the consensus was one accessory structure and the shed, which mirrored Lake District. Thoughts on either increasing that number or moving some enhancement to conditional uses? I mean, knowing what we go through with conditional use permits, right, and that process, I think gives perspective on whether,
I like the idea of maybe putting more in the accessories, keeping your two, and that gives a little more flexibility. Because I know when we made that decision, I think it was at the end of a meeting, in fact, I might have even said it, mirror the Lake District. And I don't know if that was the last meeting or the meeting before that. But I do take into consideration what you guys have talked about too, is that, you know, we have to have some ability to please most. But the other thing is, you know, it's something that's automatic that doesn't tie up all our time, all the time too, by going through the, I'll call it variance for lack of a better word. Because that's, you know, time consuming and again, taking away from things that we could be doing, you know, the bigger picture stuff, which is always a concern. So,
Or just if, you know, you're gonna, and the play structure, like you're gonna go and get the play structure and put it up, right? Like then you're thinking like, oh, I have to wait.
I wouldn't think it would be in the town code to have my kid have a swing in the backyard. Just like we're gonna get into another one, under canopies.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With the
That
pictures
one's,
that
one's,
provide.
I'm ready, cause I almost bought one. And you wanna regulate it? You give me a break.
People come in constantly for
Give me a
canopies.
break. Well, we'll talk canopies. There's canopies and there's canopies.
Yep.
So
It wasn't
before-
just rain, it was.
before
Just
we-
like there's tree houses and there's play structures.
So before we get to that, what's the subcommittee's thoughts on the proposal in R1, R3, R1 through R3? Limitation on the lot area to the 20%. Let's start with there, cause that might be,
Yeah,
that might be an
that's-
easier start point.
There's no question in my mind about that. I like,
Okay with the lot area.
I like impervious surface.
Yep.
That's why I took the
Limited.
lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the easy one.
Now,
There's no
to
question.
the accessory structures, everybody, where's the subcommittee's thoughts, or where's your comfort level? Because then I can update it, I can bring it back yet, if you'd like to see it again. But I need some direction on what you'd like to see in the ordinance.
What if the play structure had similar language to Lake District, and it would say elevated play structure at 10 feet or higher in height? Like, what happens if we clarified more that
Yes.
it has to be something more substantial than the swing and the
The A-frame swing
A-frame play
or,
structure?
or a,
What are you saying, though? To be considered an accessory structure?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're saying,
that's,
and this play structure language, you
when I
want
looked
that
at
to
it-
be you want that to read elevated play structures,
The play structure exceeding 100 square feet or at a height taller than 15 feet, because that's what we have.
and we
in
don't
our-
want incidental to residential use of the property?
Say that another way.
Well, so right now it's worded, play structures incidental to residential use of the property, meaning it avoids having a vacant lot with a play structure on it.
Yes. Yes. We still want primary
We
residence.
still
on
want
the
primary
whole.
Yes.
residence,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Just clarifying.
Yes.
Okay, so you want the same size limitation, which is 100 square feet?
Yeah, shall not have a footprint area exceeding 100 square feet or a height at any point taller than 15 feet.
Do we, I think we have height limitations in these already. Do we? Yeah, okay, I mean, okay, so,
Right, now there's setbacks.
You get, like, rather than spelling all that out, just refer it to the specific zoning number.
the problem is that specific zoning number is Lake District. It's
Oh.
not under general.
Gotcha,
If
okay.
it was under general, absolutely, then we wouldn't even be talking about that because it's already going to apply to all districts.
All right.
Okay, so I've got accessory buildings including, and then I've changed play structures to play structures not exceeding 100 square feet with a maximum height of, I'll use the same language for LD, and leave incidental to residential use of the property.
And I would keep it at 2 then.
Yep.
I have no problem with keeping the rest at 2.
Okay,
Can I ask one question? This is probably an easy one, but so I'm in Lake District. I own a lot. I bought the 2 on the side of me. I combined them. They're all one lot. I have a single family home and a detached garage. I have I could have one accessory shed, 150 square feet or less, because I've combined the 2 lots. Now I can only have one more additional cause it would still be two, I could still put up another shed.
Well,
Because you have a detached garage.
are we in,
Not another
are we in
shed,
LD or are we in
Another garage.
R1?
We're in LD.
Okay, cause if we were looking at R1, which is where I was, I don't think we're proposing any changes to LD.
Well, my only, cause in LD, you can have one shed, so hundred and fifty square
Yeah,
feet
I'd
or
have
less.
to look at LD. LD. okay,
When you
okay.
combine them, do a CSM, now you've only down to one lot, right?
Right,
Yes,
so one shed,
Yes.
So how could you expect to have more, cause you only have one lot?
it's one lot, so then you have to have only one more accessory structure then, because you have a detached
Because you have a
garage.
detached garage. Mhm. Even though you have
Would
all
that be
that
the
room.
case?
single family, constructed
One
to
water bill and one-
and accessory, building, it says here, so it doesn't.
Good.
That's the people that live in Lake Arrowhead.
I don't think, it's one shed, I agree with you could only have one shed,
Wait,
but I think you
But
could
those-
have,
Two
up-
detached garages.
Right.
you
but
could
that-
have two
that's
detached
separate
garages,
lots
cause
you
there's,
got
Yeah.
That aren't combined.
We don't set the
It's
limitation.
only
Have
one
that,
lot now,
but if
it's
you
no
would
longer
combine
one
them,
shed,
now
it's
But
no
that's
longer
two
one lot.
accessory
We need
structures.
to limit our
Right.
accessory structures.
Didn't
Yeah.
she have a detached garage?
Yeah, but a shed's not an accessory structure.
It says it is.
a shed is, when we say one shed, we mean one
No, the
hundred,
detached garage is one of your accessory structures.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, so she could have one more,
But it doesn't say two, it says one shed and 20% lot coverage in LD.
Right, so the question is, do we
oh, in LD?
adjust LD?
This kind of stuff.
So LD is not something, just
See, we were
going
not
back to
LD
the
yet, but
original
okay, yeah.
point.
LD is
was not
LD.
something that we discussed because we were talking about their other residential districts and whether we wanted to put some limitations in.
Right.
Looking at LD now, you know, to Jamie's point, if we look to LD, there is the one shed limitation. It says up in permitted uses and accessory buildings. It doesn't set a limitation on number of accessory buildings. The question is, do we want to put a similar restriction, which, I mean, then it would be very similar across, R1 through R3 and LD.
It's still 20% and,
I have a comment on that. So a lot of research shows that once you surpass 10% even lot coverage near lakes, it
You're
destroys
causing
the
a
lake
problem.
economy. Like
It's gonna cause,
there, once you go past that 10%, which I'm not saying go down to 10%, but the amount of fish species that you kill, it's dramatic. So instead of,
runoff, yeah.
I don't know if it's instead of putting that number of accessory structures, but maybe let's look into that 20%, maybe to mirror county at 15 for a lot.
I don't, when you have a third of an acre lot, and some of them are pie-shaped like this to this, like my own personally, I have 30 feet at the water, that's it. You know, it's like,
So
I can't do
going
nothing down there.
with that, if you wanna go beyond that 15, you must have an erosion control plan in place. So once you surpass that 15% lot coverage, you need to have some sort of buffer space where you have vegetation to reduce the impact you are having on the lakes.
So even a man-made lake, you're gonna, just, cause it's not a natural.
You're gonna have a
Well, do
detention
you
pond.
wanna,
on
And
it.
that, that erosion
well, that's saying,
You're
do you
gonna
want
get a
your
swimming
lakes
pool.
to get murky
Of
and,
course not, of course not,
well, that's why this would go into place.
You know, there's a lot of other ways you could do it without taking away persons, their physical structures, or limiting them to what they can put. The size of, as it is, the size of a house and a garage, and then you can't put a gazebo up, because it's gonna be a separate, you know, another structure or something. They're supposed to be there enjoying the lake, and then as it is, you can't do canopies at the water. So unless it's a lift, whatever Adams County is there down there, they can't have a boathouse, which is great, that's fine. And you can't cut the weeds up to shore any longer. And so everybody's doing their own raking and hopefully, taking care of their own beach area. But if you have a boat lift and a dock down there, which takes up about 15 to 20 feet, that leaves you 10 feet to put a buffer in, is what you're saying?
I'm just saying an erosion control plan of some sort. I can provide research on all of this
Well,
if you want
I've
to.
read it all, I've been on the 14-mile watershed, I've been through all their committees, I've done it all, and I'm more than happy to support them all. But you start doing too much limitations, and you're going to end up with a lot of folks being, leaving the area, the lake could turn into Lake Nepco. I don't know, have you seen Lake Nepco?
I'm not, no. Well, actually, no, I would say.
On the one side, it's just a solid weed
Bed.
bed.
But I think the
You cannot
impervious,
boat in it or swim in it.
the impervious surface would be, because right now, if you build a new home,
Mm-hmm.
you would be subject to the 15% impervious
Right.
surface by the county. So,
Yeah,
I think what Emily is saying is, do we want for our, not for well, it would be lot coverage, for impervious surface, would we wanna match the county at 15? Which if you did a new home, you would be subject to 15.
Right.
Or to institute some other method in which you're diverting water not to go into the lake. So it wouldn't have to be within that we wouldn't be adjusting the 75-foot setback or what could go in there, but we would be saying, would we match in Lake District that you could only do 15% impervious surface? Which we say 20, but if you have a new home and you go to the county, the county does hold you to the 15.
Would that make your zoning enforcement easier if it mirrored what the county has? I mean, does this create
Well, if you,
these different structures and, you know, whether you've got one or two or combined lots and, I mean, does that create any enforcement issues for you?
I refer to the ordinance daily, so if I have a question, I go straight to the ordinance. But, I mean, the only reason I brought this, my degree is in natural resource management, and so I spent 5 years of my life dedicated, and a big emphasis has been on water resources. So that's just why I brought this up.
and if the issue in town is clean water, why wouldn't we want to emulate what the county's doing at 15% rather than 20?
And
Can I ask just a piggyback question off Mike's? Because I think there is one piece of this that could make it difficult, is do we have any idea how many are between 15 and 20? I mean, are we creating a lot of non-conforming lots where there's lot coverage already above 15% and somebody wants to replace that structure? And they say, we wanna replace the structure, and you say erosion control plan,
that would be-
and they say no, and it just creates a different layer of complexity
Yeah.
with enforcement that you may not have a lot of time extra to add.
You can definitely, help people put out lots more materials about buffers and about the barley straw under the docks and about the, using the right fertilizers and just keep promoting that. But I just don't think you should try to, the current ones that are already existing are not going to be happy if you're gonna try to change.
I would say we would change anything going backwards.
Well, they would be
We go
grandfathered.
forward and then
They would be
change.
grandfathered.
But
Yeah.
if,
The point
if
is-
they tried to change
No,
something,
the point is, you can't change it going backwards.
Our
and
zoning
is
that
not retroactive.
My point
Is,
that,
yeah,
I would not be recommending, I'm gonna
Yeah.
put this very bluntly, I'm not recommending you consider doing this until you figure out just even a swath
many-
of some of these Lake District lots that are pie-shaped and third acre, and tell me how many are close to that 20% already. Because if you're creating a whole bunch of non-conforming lots, it's going to make your life very difficult. It just is, and it's going to be a difficult conversation, with the property owners that said, well, it was 20, what?
right?
And they are going to be non-conforming. At the same time, we'd have to be plucking those out and looking in the property files and figuring out what did they have, and some of those may have had a permit, some of them may have not had a permit. It could make it very difficult, and I would just say that if that is something y'all are considering, which is fine if you are, I would just say, get even just a cross-section
sounds
of
like
Lake
a,
District to see exactly how many of that cross-section are near the 20%, and if you are basically then creating a large number of non-conforming lots.
sounds like a project that we could recommend to the 14-mile watershed for a summer intern program
I
next
think
year.
the
I mean, that would be an interesting issue to know. Do we have enough aerial photos that are accurate
I
enough?
think the county would know because they have to have a if you would be at less than 15%, you'd have to have an erosion control plan on file with them. So I think we could ask Dustin at the county,
That would
how
be-
many Lake District properties do you have that have an erosion control file, a plan on file now?
That'd be interesting to know before you guys, because otherwise I would, you know, if we're not gonna create a monster, I would say if we emulate what the county's doing, it makes sense. But if we create a monster, then,
is avoiding enforcement headaches, both for property owners and for the town.
Yep.
And if we had an idea of those numbers from the county, I think then you would be able to make a more educated, recommendation to plan commission, and plan commission, would be able to make a more educated, decision on whether or not to recommend, zoning ordinance adjustments, because recall that when you get to the plan commission, you're going to have a public hearing.
Yep.
And if you have a public hearing that, sends out, so
150.
we have to maintain a
I
list
read-
of individuals that are interested in changes that are going to impact their property. So we have that list, we have to by law maintain it. You're going to send them all updates that we're gonna have a public hearing, and you're gonna have them here. We need to be able to answer that, because the plan commission's gonna be in a position where they need to make a determination based off of input.
Has the county's percentage of impervious surface been 15% all along?
Within 1,000 feet of shoreline, so is that, not all of Lake District is within 1,000 feet of shoreline, I just wanna be clear on that, but that's what the county would regulate, is within 1,000 feet of shoreline, so that covers a lot of the Lake District zone.
So it's already in place, but it, like, we would just reinforce it, basically, but.
Not quite done, almost done. You're fine, come on in, sit on, come on in. Yeah.
So back to Lake District, your thoughts on, again, right now, we just have under the permitted uses, and accessory buildings is what we reference. We do have the one shed limitation, but we don't have a limitation on number of accessory buildings. Thoughts on putting a number there? Or do you wanna hold on that until you get a better idea of whether you want to decrease the lot coverage?
I'd like the number from the county if they can get it for us before we go.
But I also don't think you wanna go, you
This-
wouldn't put 2 in your 3 larger lot sizes and not put any in your smallest lot
No.
sizes. Yeah,
No,
that one.
no, I'm not even suggesting that, but I'm looking at,
The two
I'd like to
structures,
know,
I agree with on that one, plus one shed.
You like the two
yeah, I don't have a
accessory
problem
buil-
with
oh,
that.
well,
Yeah,
because
but I
don't
like
have anything in
reducing
there
it.
right now proposed for you. And so that's what I need is an idea of if you're liking the 2 or 1, or just leave it open as is. So I'm hearing 2.
With the redefined play structure.
Yep, the redefined, yep.
But
No,
that's not in Lake
place-
District, that's in the larger lots.
Oh,
Yeah.
are we talking Lake
Yeah, we're
District
going
now, or are we
Lake
talking
District.
R1,
Just
2, and
talking
3?
Lake District,
Yeah.
that was
Oh,
what I
okay,
was
all right.
looking for. So we're already past R1 through R3.
Okay.
Now I'm just talking
All
Lake
right.
District. There hasn't been any language proposed to you. But looking at Lake District, we have those regulations for permitted uses. And I will put 2 in there.
Yep.
I
Okay.
think it should be uniform.
Just a quick question, and I guess it's on my own side, is if you have a house in the Lake District with a attached garage and then you have a separate garage, is the attached garage part of the home then? Or is-
Yes.
Okay, so, and that's kinda how they operate, I think, with the associations or whatever. right?
Yep.
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 Under that same rule. Gotcha.
Again, more of the concern has come in where people have combined lots and they have a detached garage, and now they wanna build another garage on that combined lot.
Seen a few of those going on.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Cause detached garages are very common, cause a lot of properties were built as cottages, right? So then they added a detached garage, now they bought the
Yep.
lot next door, now they wanna add another garage,
Yep,
so then, so,
Okay.
Toy storage.
I will update LD. I will not update the LD lot coverage, but I suspect for the next meeting, you will have some, maybe information from the county if they have that. on what that is, and we can then revisit that. But you will have for your next meeting some adjusted language for R1 through R3 and LD.
And then we'll revisit canopies at our next meeting.
That's,
I don't think you wanna start right now.
We only got 15
There's not enough
minutes.
time.
No. The other thing included in your packet was that, future land use map too, just,
Can we get a big one like you have,
sure.
please? And can we get a town zoning map of that size as well?
Yeah.
So I can read it,
Mm-hmm.
please?
Both of those, yes. We can make those in between meetings here.
I even got it in color and I can't figure it out.
But just a reminder about spending some time with that future land use map. So we will, for today's purposes, we're gonna, skip number 14. That'll go to the next meeting.
Okay?
Then next agenda items will be a second review of chapters 6, 7, and 8. And the next meeting
Probably
date
back by 4
would
o'clock.
be July 12th at 2:30. Does that still work in everyone's schedule? That would be before
Yeah.
the July Plan Commission meeting?
I've just talked to Paul to see if he would be able to sit in for me that day because I have a county meeting at 2 o'clock.
Okay,
I can make it to the plan commission meeting, but I don't think, I can't make 2:30. If that's no objection by the rest of the committee.
yeah, as long as, if Paul can be there as alternate, that's,
Let me take a look right now.
okay.
July 12th, Tuesday.
Should be good, I'm guessing.
Somebody sent me a job notice for public works director in City of Milwaukee.
We're making good
No.
progress.
No.
If you can, I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay,
I'm gonna add it down on there, but it's this meeting, so.
Oh, okay, great.
so then I will call the meeting adjourned for today at 3:47 PM. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if I